Welcome to the SPL Rundown. I'm your host, APAM, here with my three wonderful analysts, Frost, Rathan, and we have a special guest this week. That is Cardiac, the coach of Eunited, will be joining us. Stick around later for my interview with Sanford Soccer 2. But first, let's get started with the first set of the week, which is Sanguine versus SSG. And we see that Sanguine get Netroid and Netroid's Freya and Nemesis for Panatom, and they still sort of get methodically stomped by SSG here. What are your first thoughts on this set?
Who wants to go first? Because I've got some laying into them that I want to do. So I start with the positive stuff first, maybe.
Yeah, it seemed like a whole lot of meta slaving struck again.
That wasn't
Really?
positive at all.
Not the positive stuff. I mean, the positive stuff is they're playing in the SPL.
Yeah. I heard
They're
someone
not at the bottom.
I heard someone say it quite well. Sanguine, the first phase, played like they had something to prove, like they wanted to prove that they belonged in the SPL. They're still playing like that. They're not really playing like they belong to be in the top three. Just, we're happy to be here is all.
Yeah, that could be true. I think SSG definitely had a strategy going into the game by letting them have Freya. Obviously, you don't want to have that pick just go completely uncontested. And so I think they did well picking into that dual lane, pressuring that out, and kind of running it that way.
What do you think was their thought process in letting them have Freya? I say that because they picked Hebo jungle and a Muzen mid both games as well. Is there something that they were trying to do there? I think they might have also gotten Jing Wei into Freya both games as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think Vote's probably very comfortable in that matchup.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not sure if the Hebo was specifically into the Freya or whatever, but it might have just been a comfort pick that week for Cherry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, they definitely had something planned when taking away the Ama, taking away the Jingwei, and playing it like that. Also, like the Xing Chen's pretty decent into Freya as well. You're gonna be forcing something every time you go on her, so
yeah,
I think they played it pretty well.
One other thing I wanted to note is that they basically had the same teacup except for the support, and Raffer switched from Xing 10 to Ganesh between game 1 and 2. So it seemed like they were really happy with that team comp into the Freya.
Right, they're very consistent with their picks, like through this set and a few prior, and even some in phase 1, even some in season 6. Once they have a comp, they're just like, all right, we're sticking to this. They feel like Sanguine at final level.
Yeah, I think that's probably something where they work on it throughout the week and they just find the characters that they're feeling most confident on and just kind of go with that. It is pretty interesting that a lot of their games they do just run back the same drafts, but they're very consistent and they're very dominant at what they do. And if it works for them, it works. I think SSG are probably one of the best performing teams right now.
The last thing that I wanted to mention and bring up here was I think this was the first Chiron mid game that we've seen in Phase 2. And I know the analysts were saying that Chiron is an underrated god, so look out for it. So what do you think of the first Chiron sighting that we've seen?
Not like that. Not the way. Yeah, no, that was a game 2 Shinto. That build, I get what he's going for. That's the season 6 ADC mid build. That was for like an on her or whatnot, but you can't be building that, baby. It's the Fail Not Soul Eater build right now with all the pen changes. It's the before they took away Fail Not and made it completely irrelevant. I don't think you go that build on a Chiron, really. There's not much cooldown to offer the utility that he has in the kit. It's kind of lackluster for me.
Yeah, Chiron can definitely be one of those picks that completely turns a draft, but I don't know if it was the best pick this game. And yeah, I guess he didn't really execute it to as well as he could have either. It is kind of a difficult character to play in mid. You do have to time your ults well. Obviously, if you're just sitting in your ult, you're going to get gone on very easily, so you have to be timing those well and try and get as much damage off as you can there. It probably is a pick that we will see more of, but yeah, this game it probably was just not executed well.
Well, he was going to try and blow somebody up because you got the Transcendence, Warrior Tabai, Brawlers, Crushers, Heartseeker, Titans. He just wanted, I'm assuming, Panatom to Nem ult somebody and then just blow them up completely.
Yeah.
I don't think he was really planning for much outside of a team fight combo scenario.
Yeah, he used it like a Reginald. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right, any final thoughts on this set before we move on to Radiance versus PK?
I hope to see the Chiron again, but I hope he tweaks that build a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to just see some diversity out of Sanguine. I think they play. Like I almost want to say it's probably completely arrogant to say this, but like it's almost like SSG just knew what they were going to pick and how they were going to play and how to play around it. And we talked about that 2 weeks ago, Frost, where it's just like whenever you settle into a pattern with the things you like to play and the way you like to play, like you become predictable. People could start strategizing around that and against you.
Oh yeah,
I think this is the first time where they really got punished for it because they had the good picks. Particularly, obviously, we got Freya both games, right? Freya Nem, the Horus, which staple god for Rongyu, Raijin, staple god for Shinto. Yarkor is the only one. Again, I've gotten in my fair share of trouble for calling people out for their god puddles, but
do it.
No, I'm not gonna do it this time.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yarkor,
tienes como unos 3 dioses, hombre. Tienes que agarrar más.
Yarkor is a decent god pool, but it seems like everybody else is like it was Jingwei, Shibalanki for Netrioid last phase. It is Freya, Jingwei this phase. If you just know that's what's going to come out, then you can start hedging against that. You build your draft in your head before you even start picking bands. And I think it bit them. I don't think it was the be all and end all that SSG just outdrafted them. But I think they predicted what they were going to do.
Yeah, I think SSG has really good map play, and they individually can recognize opportunities. And Sanguine's strength, in my opinion, is their team fighting, and that they play around each other very well. So I think SSG just maybe matches up against them decently. And if they're able to pick their fights well, know when to farm, and they kind of just rolled both games. I think SSG just is really decent at knowing when to farm and when to fight. And you've seen a lot of games where they're maybe even downing kills.
Yeah.
But they're even in gold or up in gold.
Sure.
And that's something they're really strong at.
Moving on to Radiance versus PK, and this set was a pretty crazy, almost base race, I guess you could call it, in game 1, and then pretty much a stomp by Radiance in game 2. What'd you guys think of Paul's crazy Heimdall backdoor play?
I think they just wanted that game to end. That's just.
Yeah, but what was the game time on that? Like 57 or something?
It was
like
long.
That? Yeah.
It was.
They don't have the game times on the site, and that is frustrating. But
yeah, that game was pretty back and forth, I'd say, in the mid to late game, and those games can be taxing. And if you see opportunities where you could potentially backdoor, I know PK tried to backdoor multiple times in the final few minutes of that game.
Yep.
You try and see opportunities. I think kind of they just wanted it to be over as well. They are an aggressive and calling team, but yeah, this game it didn't work out for them.
Taxing. You said taxing. My man Benji's brain was melted after that game. Next game dives to back harp. He's like, I don't know if I don't know what the thought process was there, but I would say he probably was feeling mentally fatigued from the first game.
Yeah. I think it was interesting because if I'm remembering correctly, it's like they didn't have a mid Phoenix and the Titan was like it had like 1,000 HP, right? Like they were super pushed out. So you almost got to think of like if you have the option, you almost kind of have to go for it because your chances of defending anyway are 5%.
I think the Titan had like close to 20% HP. I think it was even worse than
it's enough where you 5-man rush in and you can get enough CC. I mean, unless somebody pulls off just an absolute nuts counterplay, which I don't think anybody on their team, like maybe a good Ganesh ult would have stopped it, but
yeah, especially against Zap. That's his karma. We've known he loves to base race, and now I think the last, I want to say like 3 or 4 base races that he's been a part of, he's lost. But before that, he was just Zap's going to get your base. That's it.
I almost wish Paul had picked up like he didn't even need to get like a 500 pot, but if he'd thrown like an Odibo on or something like that to give him an extra attack speed, I think he actually might have taken it. Because at that point, you don't need movement, right? They're either going to kill you,
Yeah,
or you're going to kill the Titan, and another 40%, and I think he takes it. Over the physical power off Warrior Tabby. So I'm surprised he didn't just like really commit to it and go all in.
Well, probably a lot of things going on in the heat of battle, I imagine.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing
it had to have for Zap to get anti-heal.
One thing I wanted to mention is I think this is the first time we've seen Paul basically exclusively play Hunters, and this is the first time I've ever seen him really play Neath in the mid lane. What do you think on Paul's Neath and Hunters in the mid lane in general? Is that something that's now becoming more meta?
I think it's boring. I hate it. I think it's boring, right? Like anytime you're dropping like the big mage fight turning ultimates out of the game in favor of just like pressure, it's boring to me, right?
Like Cupid.
I want a world where it's like Kukulkan, Thoth, Ra,
Ew.
Scylla. Like give me like the big one shots that like change the tide of a game, not some like calculated Neath ult to pick somebody off. I mean, it's like watching paint dry.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised to see him pick up the Neath in game 2. When I thought the Medusa would be going to him actually, and Zap would be taking the Neath. But I mean, it must have been something they had been practicing, and yeah, the double hunter strat with the Hebo must have been something they had been practicing all week. It is a little interesting because, yeah, as you say, like last split last year, he would usually just stick to his mages. So he's trying to diversify a little bit. He's even picked up the Morrigan this year, which I wouldn't have expected him to play. But yeah,
do you think they put him on the Neath?
Didn't he have
Like
an
if the
ult?
Hebo was originally meant for him,
Ooh.
and then as they got further into the draft, they were like, wait a second.
it could be a flex pick for them for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's a duelist. Every duelist has a Neath.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just something to prove. I kind of like it though, just because it puts more pressure on the other team to actually have an answer. I don't like Kukulkan because it's like we're going to concede all pressure, and then when they come for our towers, we're just going to hit them with the ult. With the Neath, it's sort of okay. A play is going to be made within the next 60 seconds because that ult's coming back up. We have to do something now, or we have to be ready for it. So it just kind of keeps the pace going constantly. I do enjoy more small pressure, constant fighting over let's farm for 30 minutes and then go for it. Except I do think we do a little too much damage right now because we're farming more and the fights are not lasting nearly as long.
Sure.
Yeah, I will say that the Cabrakan pick from Aurora in that second game was very smart. It is a character that he has played from time to time, but in that draft specifically, I really like the Cabrakan.
Last thing about this game, which was Radiance looked really good in game 2, and we can't not talk about the crazy blink that Adapting had to save his teammate's life there in game 2, absorbing the Neath ult. Is Nem the best jungle right now? I think we see a lot of junglers really prioritizing Nem in the picks and bans. What are your thoughts on Nemesis in the meta and even on Radiance in game 2?
Yeah, I think Nem is obviously a very strong jungler. The items really suit her very well right now. I think coupled with her getting a couple small buffs as well, people just started to play her more. I think she feels really strong to play for the jungler. And yeah, if you can get a good start on her, she really can snowball matches and make team fights really hard. There is some counterplay to her as well. Like there are teams that have been just first picking her. But I think there is some counterplay to playing against Nem that we'll probably see more and more as she's getting through this meta. But yeah, obviously she's a very strong jungler.
Frost and Wraith, any thoughts on Radiance in game 2 or Nem and
on that same one? I think it's just a product of we have all these new toys to go for right now. I don't think there's a set meta just yet. I think it's more flavors. Like what does each team prefer? What does everybody think is kind of fun?
Yeah, that's true as well.
Everybody's just like, yeah, you're in the SPL and you want to win, but you also You don't want to just play the same stinky god all the time.
Sure. Unless you're saying,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I think Nem's always been a good.
They enjoy it though. They have fun with it.
That's true.
At least I assume so. I don't think anyone else would put that much time on themselves on a Jingwei.
Sorry, Ray.
No, you're good. I just gonna say I feel like Nem has always like had value.
Yeah.
Right, like she's always been like a solid pill. You get like a Jean Kui or Hades or something like that. I don't know. Like depending on the picks, like you'd always pick up an M and make your team more effective, but you were always like sacrificing something because her early game was weak, her clear was weak. She gets out farmed.
She doesn't offer much CC.
Yeah, you're living off slows, which is you buy one heavenly and her kit's useless, right?
Right.
Not useless, but you know what I mean, right? But
Sure.
she's hard countered by Winged Blade. Those are always things that just kind of held her back. And I think with the rise of the Golden Blade, and some of the changes in the jungle, I think with the Golden Blade abusers, I'll call them, being a little bit more popular. I think that's just why we're seeing her, because she's just a heavy utility god, right? Like she's just there to make somebody not tanky, which is very valuable right now because supports already feel like they're not tanky as it is.
True.
That's why you get Kabrakin and you've got mitigations.
Yeah, in the early to mid game as well, before carries have some items online, it's very hard to fight into that shield as well. Like she can really just 100 to 0 someone.
Great. Okay. Any final thoughts? Sure.
It's just a final Nem thought. I was actually kind of memeing on it on Twitter. It actually wasn't even memeing. It was just like I still think like at the average level of play, like I like this like auto attack based Nem build thing that people have going on, but I still think in like the average level of play where like people still haven't gone around to picking up Nemean on every carry. Like I still think the ability based build on her is just so potent.
Oh yeah, you still do ton of damage.
You just shred people. And everything is up off cooldown like every 3 seconds, so your mobility is insane. If you get CC'd out of your first shield, you can disengage and use your wait until another one comes back. I want to see Nemean get nerfed a little bit, and I think we'll see a little bit more build diversity with her too come out after that. But she's a fun god to play. She just doesn't. I don't know. She's never really like offered much, in my opinion.
Could just depend on what it is that they're playing. Because seeing here, adapting went looks like a kind of auto attack crit build hybrid thing, and then the next game ability based with a little auto attack. It might just be matchups.
I think, I mean, in that first game, they might have had multiple shell. Yeah, they had 3 shells and 3 Nemean, so that is a little rough for the Nem going into late game. And that game obviously went like 50 plus minutes, so it's very tough for the Nem to do anything in those fights after they have triple shell, triple Nemean. So I think that's why he opted towards this build in game 2.
I'm surprised we didn't see him just trade out for cooldown, if I'm being real honest with you. Because, like, I mean, at that point, like, if you're not getting autos off, if you're not burning through the shell or anything like that, like, if it's obvious that when you go in, you're just going to die, like, I'm surprised that he didn't just rush a bunch of cooldown so that they could take fights more often. Although I suppose he's probably halfway through his build when he figured it all out. But, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Third game this weekend was Ghost versus Renegades. And this was a 3-game set again, which I think Ghost is sort of had quite a few of. And I guess of the 3 games, 2 of them have been 3-game sets. But another sort of sloppy little game, losing pretty late on in game 2. What's going on with this Ghost roster? Is there still a little fine-tuning that needs to be done?
No, I think that's what we're witnessing, is that they kind of like do the one game, so that's a buffer, and then the second is experimenting. And then the third one is like, okay, we either did the fine-tuning for the second game, or we're just going to close this one out before we lose it all. Sure. It's like teams like Radiance, teams like SSG, teams like Ghost, I think they are more willing to sort of push strats in a live environment just to try and see how other teams are going to react to it. They have no fear of actually losing games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was either one of two things. One, they came out and crapped on RNG so hard in the first game that they were like, easy dub, whatever, play whatever you want, and kind of didn't take the second one seriously? Or like Frost said, that they were literally trying strats out live?
Well, I think it was a little bit.
That too, though. They're troll as hell.
Yeah, there was a little bit of trolling.
That's why I lean to that, right?
They're
Like,
super
I almost want to be like,
disrespectful.
yeah, I mean,
after they stomped you the first
we're
game.
talking Mike, Panda, Twig, right? Who are three of the biggest trolls that we have in the scene, right? And you blow somebody out by that big of a lead. It was like what, like 20K?
Yeah,
it was almost 20K.
Well, and even in game 2, they were like fairly ahead, if I remember correctly. Like they had taken all the towers and they were pushing to end the game, and they kind of overextend a little bit. And if you overextend too much in the late game, you might lose the game on it, which is what happened.
Yeah, in game 2, Ven was also playing the Persephone.
Mhm.
Solo was on the Thor, and Barra obviously was popping off on Jingwei. So I think their pick ban was a lot better in that game. They let the Persephone go through, which is maybe what they were kind of banking on, trying to play against Persephone in a live match.
Yeah.
And she just does so much damage. And obviously the Thor offers, what was he playing in game 1? I honestly forget, but the Wukong.
Yeah.
They're similar, but the Thor obviously offers a little bit more there in terms
Sure.
of getting on the carries.
Yep.
So I think maybe just some of those, a couple fights went wrong for Ghost in the late game, and Renegades were just able to push their lead, which give them credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best thing that came out of this set in general was the shit talking on Twitter. I said it. What was it? Was it last week, Frost? You and I were talking about how everybody is like, "Oh, GG, well done, good sir." The fantastic contest, right?
Yeah.
And finally, Sam comes over the top and he's like, "GG, the better Thor won." And I was like, "Oh, like come on, give me more of that."
I'm all about it. There's egos on this team for sure.
Just do it.
I don't know about that. I do think though this set was training grounds for Ghost, seeing how Persephone kind of works, because RNG banned it and then picked it the next 2 games.
Okay.
It seemed like Ghost didn't even really care. They're just like, all right, let's see how we can play into one.
Yeah. The last thing I want to mention about this game is in game 3, we saw 4 sledges picked up by Ghost. Is this some classic sledge abuse by the Ghost boys here?
I don't know if they're memeing. I don't know if they actually like it.
No, because Twig always opts for like on every mid laner, he opts like a 3rd item, health item, or defense item. Almost every single time it's a toxic blade or winged blade or relic dagger or something like that.
Yeah, he's always kind of built like that.
Sure.
Fine, okay, it just makes sense on the Ama. And then who was the last one? PBM on a
Horus.
Warrior support.
Yeah.
Warrior support. Yeah, you're gonna build a sledge. If you can buy a sledge, you build it. Right? It's pretty much the deal. I don't know that I like it on the Thor.
Yeah, it's a nice core item.
I don't know if I like it on the Thor so much. I'm a big Void Shield fan. I guess Final K already had one, but
he might have been building one. He's got like either part of a shifters or a void here.
Yeah, it looks like he was either going shifters or because that's not the tier 2 of Void is the warded shield.
Sure.
One with
Any final thoughts about this set, guys?
No, I was pretty surprised to see that it was going to 3 games, but I mean, I guess we took Ghost to 3 games as well.
Sure.
But no, I honestly was not surprised by the outcome in the end. I think the sledge thing kind of got memed a little bit, but it might end up just being very meta, as Ghost tends to make things. I think on supports, especially getting like first item sledge makes you super strong, and on the Horus and Mike piloting the Horus, I think that's kind of just like what he wants to do. That item's kind of made for him, and it makes him be able to play super aggro and kind of solo people once he gets that item online. Coupled with the CCR boots as well, you know, he's max or 40% CCR into like the tier support kind of. So I don't know if that was his thought process there or what, but
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to do an audible here?
Yeah, go
do it.
Call the audible.
So I have a question for Cardiac, because we talked about this Lermy Frost and I did it. It was either last week or the week before, but and I'd like to get your opinion as a coach, right? And somebody who's watched the meta. So why don't we see like heavy like so everybody is pretty much unanimously in agreement that prots feel like they're worthless, right? Every support that I talk to is like, I feel like no matter how many prots I have, it just doesn't matter. I'm gonna get destroyed. Why don't we see more like straight damage mitigation options coming out, right? Like Oni Spirit is like the specific combo I'm thinking of, right? Oni Spirit and just a shitload of health, right? You know, I'm surprised that we don't see more of that, or at least, you know, that combo in concert with Amaterasu support or something like that, where you can stack up those mitigations. You have like 50% mits, you know, by the late game, and things like that. So I'm interested to hear your take on that, because everybody says that prots feel like they're worthless, but everybody's still building them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Thebes is an interesting item where supports almost go at like exclusively every game, and obviously it's a very strong item when it's stacked, but there are some stats that are missing from it. I think that, like, I do agree with you that the Oni Spirits Rub is very strong when it's built. It only gives 10% CDR, and it doesn't provide much of an aura, I guess, for the team as well. But that build can be strong in a certain comps. I think that right now, like the sledge is very meta on warrior supports, and a lot of like Hercs and Horuses are being picked. So maybe that's why I do agree with you that build could be fine.
Wait, what? Oni doesn't have CDR.
No, I'm all on Spirit. Yeah, but on Spirit's Rub.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
It is odd. It's you know, the natural to, if your protections aren't that good, you go health, a little protections, and then mitigations, but we don't
yeah, I think health builds are kind of popular right now as well. On some supports like Xing Chen or Fafnir or some harder to kill supports, I think that the mitigation build can be really strong though.
I think you just kind of go for like bruiser or utility builds. That's why we still get these protections, but you're getting some items like Pridwin's Sledges has more of the CCR, but then what we got here, we got Mike's got a Heartseeker on a Mulan. He's got he's going fast on Herc.
That god's broken.
I think the goal now is more so put up a fight instead of, okay, I'm just going to soak damage for the team.
Sure.
Yeah, as you can see, like Mike's playing very aggressive supports in all these games, right? Like if you're playing more of a defensive support, I could see you building that. But when teams are playing these aggressive warrior supports, it kind of is a little opposite of way of thinking.
Funny thing though, I did make a support build that's just like health and mitigations, Rathan. I'm gonna see if I can make a catch on like a bad flu.
Dude, I was so happy. Was it this week? I feel like it was it was the week before that we saw Mail Renewal come out.
Yeah.
On like
yeah, that was against us. I think Ghost built it.
I love that item.
We were lacking some anti-heal that game, and they recognized it. Yeah.
But I was because I was just thinking like you run like an Ama, right? Which is like 3,800 health and like 40% mitigation in or two. And you can get enough cooldown out of some of the health items that you can, or you know, you run like Renewal, Relic Dagger, or something else, and like you could literally have like 40% CDR, like 3,500 HP, and 40% damage mitigation or more, and just live that way.
Interesting to me, yeah.
Well, Renewal's a little bit of a slept-on item. There's a lot of anti-heal being built in the meta.
Thank you.
I mean, I'll say it, yeah. There's a lot of anti-heal being built, but I think the item is a little slept on. Paired with Stone Gaia, it can be pretty strong, I think.
Sure. All right, boys. PK versus Eunited. And this one, I think, has to be summed up with set mid and Paul on Morgan. PK looking very good in this set against your boys, Cardiac. What are your thoughts on the set mid? Is this something that we're going to see more and more of? Assassins in the mid lane?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the set was the main issue in our game specifically. he did obviously do very well in the late game situation, but we were obviously super behind at that point.
Sure.
There was a play in mid where Scream Neja ulted him and Hurry was under him with Olo and he got out 1 HP. I think that if they were able to get that kill early on, that could have swung the game a little bit more in our favor. Yeah, the set was definitely an interesting pick. Having them played it in the jungle previously,
Yep.
I think they were kind of just going to try that out in mid this game, and it worked for them.
Right, Frost?
PK versus Eunited. Okay, then. Oh, that one. Yes. Fresh in my mind where it's first Paul goes Morrigan, and then he decides he's just going to pick the character that he wanted to play anyways.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he got a taste of set in the first game with some ult, and was like, yeah, I want to play that again.
So just want to keep it the whole time. And that one, another thing that kind of stuck out was it seems Zap's kind of getting a little more respectful now. He was way more gung ho when he started, but now it's just okay. I'll play it back a little bit, wait it out, even though he is known for this pure bloodlust and getting soloed.
Hey, you mentioned that. I watched the new PK Virtue video that came out this morning, and Chuckles made sure to mention that Zap, I believe, in one of the games against Eunited, who is usually very proactive about ending, was like, hey, let's pull it back. Let's not overcommit to these things that we don't need to. So that was something that Chuck pointed out as a strength and something that they had learned to do instead of always going for the end, which we know Zap loves to do.
That's for late game, though, isn't it? It's like late game Zap is so different from early game Zap. It's I don't know what it is that's leading him, and I think that's what the strength was for last year for them winning Worlds. They could facilitate Zap into the late game where he shines as a shot caller. Sure. Because from the duo, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know if he's getting antsy, but he's just very gung ho. Except the team just shines so much in the late game once he's making calls.
Yeah, I think in the game one, he picked up a Genji's on the Olaron, which made it really hard for the Cthulhu and the Ao Kwang to dive him as we kind of wanted. Sure. So that was a decent pickup from him. And yeah, Paul's Mori was really far ahead on the Morrigan, and he had good transforms that game, to be fair. So
you say you wanted Cthulhu to dive him, but he has like a very tanky build. Why, if we're going to be adamant about Cthulhu support, why is it not at least Cthulhu Bruiser? Because we've seen so much like lack of success from a wall, a big fat cow Cthulhu. He's not actually killing anything. Your carries are dying around you. Why so adamant about a tank Cthulhu?
Yeah, I think there has been some games where Snoopy has built more hybrid. This game, he obviously felt like he wasn't doing much in the fights, and he wanted to be as tanky as possible to try and live them. But yeah, there has been some games where he's like built a Divine Ruin into the build to just be able to proc that in his ult. I do think that the more hybrid build is better on Cthulhu support, because what you want to do on that character is get ahead early, play the mid game, and be just like this oppressive force in the mid game where you can't fight into him at all when his ult's up.
I'm not going to be satisfied until I see somebody building him or playing him with Deso. Because that ult, if you're playing him right, is like a guaranteed kill. That cooldown's definitely coming through with the passive. So I'm not gonna give out that like, all right, this is the Cthulhu to watch until I see a Deso.
Yeah, I think he's definitely been more successful in the solo lane in SPL. Earlier on, we were having success with him in support, but as shown in our set so far, it hasn't worked out in SPL. But I think he definitely has merit in both roles. Maybe solo lane is just a little better as he can get his items and get his levels on quicker, and then can rotate into mid and be super strong around gold free fights or buff invades, etc.
Sure.
And you can definitely like pick your fights as a solo laner too. In support, we saw that Snoopy's biggest problem was kind of using ult when he didn't want to, and now you've got nothing left because Cthulhu only shines with his ult.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Any final thoughts about this PK versus United set?
It's nice to see Paul branching out. I did take him for not a one trick, but it's a if you're really good with one thing, why let it go?
Mm-hmm.
But people still think that he's a force to be reckoned with because he's getting banned out all the time on that hell.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I think Paul is one of those players in the league where he does force a lot of bans just by himself.
That's kind of the crazy thing about Paul is that PK can pretty much pick whatever they want because everybody else has to waste so many bans banning out Paul that they like the meta stuff just starts getting through.
Yeah, the stuff that he plays very well, he's super top tier at it. And it makes games very hard to win.
All right, then. Moving on to Radiance versus Sanguine. And this, I believe, was another 3-game set, and Sanguine were able to take the second one. But Radiance came through. It was sort of like lopsided in the winner's favor in each game.
Right,
So,
yeah.
Radiance win game 1, Sanguine win game 2, and Radiance win game 3. I don't know if there's really even much to really glean from this. It just seems like you get some early kills and you snowball a lead to win a game. Am I
was game
missing
3 really
something?
that lopsided? I feel
No.
like that went really long.
Yeah, well,
The first two were lopsided.
long.
Sure.
I
yeah.
remember that game was long because I had to go to the grocery store. And I was like, Jesus, are they going to close before I get a chance to go?
You sure that was the Radiance Knights game? Oh man, the one that almost lasted an hour. These were relatively short, but it was a kind of stomp. First game, second game stomp. Third was more. All right,
Yeah.
we'll
Third
take
was
it.
more even, but I don't remember it
110K
being-
gold is like what? Like you're at like 45, 50 minutes at that point, right?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, their game was definitely longer, but the first two, I think the first game, their dual lane, or Radiance's dual lane, just completely ran over Sanguine
Oh man.
with the emoji Cupid. They were on their purple buffs like instantly, and I think the Heim Terra just did not have enough pressure to keep up with Emoji Cupid at all. And
Sure.
Aurora and Cyclone were just solo running that game. And then in game 2, I think Panatom had a really strong game on the Mercury. He was setting up a lot of plays in solo and in mid, trying to get his team ahead. The Hebo was also a very strong pick that Sanguine adapted to.
You know, I forgot to mention too. I was mostly keen on keeping an eye on the duo lanes this last weekend of which ones did the Ghost Minion strat and in which way.
Yeah.
Aurora is a bully because he'll take the Ghost Minion, hits that level 2, and he walks you all the way back to your tower. He does not care for the rest of the wave. He's like, I got my level 2. My Hunter's going to get the rest. And he just bullies you over and over again. Oddly enough, it was Ghost who did not choose to go for Ghost Minions. So that little, it's like a little duo meta that I'm excited to see how it pans out into these games. But it did seem like Aurora favors the aggressive style, get in your face with that lead, and he knows how to make a lead with it, boy.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on maybe the character you're playing as well. Like if you have a strong level 2, i.e.
Sure.
like a Hercules or something where you can make plays when you're level 2, maybe you would go for that. But there's some dual lanes where once you hit level 2, you can't really do much more anyways. So they would just rather both hit 2 at the same time, I guess. Or if they feel like they're not going to have the pressure in lane, they might just chill and let them clear.
Sure. One thing that I've been noticing a lot in this duo lane is the rise in Cupid ADCs, and this is something we'll see also in the next set with Wowie, who I think played Cupid in both games in his set. We see Cyclone Spin pick it up twice here. Why is Cupid sort of rising to prominence nowadays?
He hurts, man. He is hard.
Yeah.
That god's been good forever, and he's just getting his limelight now.
Okay.
He's always had like crazy team fight control, and his clear was just like a little weak because of the way you gotta mess around with a heart bomb. And they buff that, it's like, forget it. God's good now.
Sure.
Yeah, he does
People
a lot
even
of
playing him
damage.
in
It
mid
just
and
turns-
stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Cupid's pretty strong right now. He does have the sustain, which is kind of unique to a hunter. And yeah, obviously the huge AoE ult is big in the team fight. I do think he has some weaknesses, but yeah, I think the buff change really helped him a lot. And you've seen people who are a little more comfortable on Cupid picking him up.
Cupid jungle. That's all I'm saying. He's strong. He does a lot of damage. I'm serious. He actually has disgusting
I think
clear.
Cherry was spamming that for a little while.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on the Radiance versus Sanguine set?
Then here we got Poseidon, the old Hecate. God dang it! Oh, that stupid ring. with the Typhons, though, the combination of that ring and lifesteal is not. How you feel about that, Cardiac?
Which Hecate Typhons?
Hecate Typhons and the prominence of it.
On the Poseidon specifically, or just in general?
The Poseidon in this game, but also just
I think this is the first game where we've seen Poseidon mid pick up a Hecate, and I actually do like the build he went. I maybe would have preferred the Typhons before Toxic Blade, but honestly, that build is very strong. 3 to 4 items in, and it's very hard to. And he can sustain like outside of fights, like heal back up, come back in. I think it's a pretty strong build. And Typhons plus Boots plus Hecate together really synergize.
I was playing it after the set. I was playing some games and I could not win for the life of me. I'm on my best gods. I've played ADC for years. Nothing could come of it. I switched to Chronos and Poseidon. Hecate, Typhons. It felt like I couldn't lose.
Yeah.
I don't play
once
a
you
lot
get
of mage
Hecate
ADCs.
online, the item feels really strong.
Are you becoming a Hecate abuser, Frost?
You have to. You have to be in this stupid meta because you could press all these buttons, do everything right as a regular hunter. But I was getting outplayed. I was getting outfarmed and everything. But no, once that combo comes through,
Sure.
two items, and you're full build.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we talked about the Hecate Poseidon now because I was going to ask about it for the next set, but let's talk about the next set now. With SSG versus Obey. And in both these games, Obey start off strong in the early game, but it just seems like when it comes to the mid game or the late game, SSG is the best in the league at this point. Early on in phase 2, they look to be the best in just sort of suffocating the map and winning pretty methodically.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I was pretty surprised to see how well Obey had cleaned up their early game, and they really had a strategy going into these games. I think it was kind of a similar thing where they're like, we're going to let them have Freya, and we're just going to try and out-pressure it and try and win before that Freya can get online. And it looks pretty strong for them, obviously both games, but yeah, there was just something like you kind of just knew that SSG was going to win, even that Obey got ahead, and that's tough to say for Obey and for Obey fans, but SSG are just so strong right now, and they know when to pick. As I said before, they know when to pick their fights, and they're very strong at it.
I want these guys to do well so bad.
Hey,
SSG, they're doing okay.
Game 2 was a lot better. I think Game 2, they were on par for a lot of the game, and the team fight in the middle of the game to the end of the game just sort of doesn't break their way.
It was that last team fight as well where Cherry
on the Phoenix.
Yeah, Cherry did so much in that fight. I don't think Sino got his ult off or whatever, so that kind of ruined it for him. But Cherry just still blinked in and got a 1 on both carries and did half their health.
Yeah, that was tough to watch.
We've got Sino off of Warriors now, though. That's improvement.
Finally
kept up with his promise that he made on Twitter, right?
He did. He might go back on it now that he didn't win, but
I think it's weird that of all the gods that he could have picked to come off the Warrior train on, he went with Kali. I don't really find her particularly
he takes it off of Cherry.
Fun. Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
I don't even know if Sino has a Kali.
I think Sino does. I feel like I've seen enough of the.
I'm sure he's got everything.
The morning Q Callies on the stream.
Yeah, I think he's traditionally been a very unique player where he sticks to his one thing, but he plays it super well, and you know he's going to play what he wants to play, but he still will just outplay you and outskill you on that. But he's trying to switch maybe to these hyper carries as the Warriors weren't going that well. I'm not sure if that's really his play style or not.
It's all like there's never been like a player character combination that was ever so dominant though for a long time. I figured he'd be. I didn't think he'd be so headstrong to try and kind of maintain what he was doing. I guess it is. It is more so like die on this hill or die on the plains of trying to adapt to the meta. I guess he just prefers the elevation.
Last thing that I saw that was interesting. Oh, go ahead, Wraith.
I was just gonna say it almost felt like they got the lead that they wanted, that they felt they deserved, and they got so caught up in the fact that they were ahead and pushing and executing cleanly that they just slipped up, took the wrong fight, and it just all blew up on them all at once. Particularly in that second game, right? I mean, they had that game in the bag. Yeah, nothing's ever in the bag, but they were gearing up to close it out, and it just all went to hell very quickly for them. And I think it's almost like that. Like, I don't want to say like we've never been here before. What do we do? Right? Like, wait a minute. No. This game was supposed to be over 10 minutes ago with us getting our asses kicked, right? Like, you know what I mean? And I feel like you get to that point where you're like, oh damn, like we got to close this game out, and like one mistake and it's over, right? Your lead is gone.
That happened last phase though,
and they were so close, man. It was close.
One thing that I saw that was interesting was Darda's playing the Jingwei mid in both of the games. What are your thoughts on Jingwei as a mid laner?
I hope you're not asking me that because I can't stand her as in any character role anywhere.
Is this mostly just to facilitate Freya in the duo lane? Because I think Vote was also able to play Freya in both of the games.
Yeah, it could have been a pick where they were like, we're gonna have Freya. We maybe don't want them to have Jingwei into the Freya, so we're just gonna pick both.
Yeah.
And Dardes has shown proficiency on that character, I think, last season.
Sure.
I don't know if she's super strong in mid or anything. She does her passive kind of, I guess, synergizes well with mid a little bit, but I think it was something more than the strength of the character. I think it was a draft thing.
Sure.
Do you think it's also part like safety? I feel like these lads, SSG, know the ins and outs of like the Cali matchups now. The comp is just super safe. Freya's in the air. Naja can take you all the way up with it. Jingwei's hard to catch. Ganesh is kind of the only problem, maybe. Wukong leaves.
Yeah.
Aside from the Nuwa, I think they've got everything down packed for Cali
Rama
matches.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true as well. Yeah, both carries can just get in the air in the fight and not take damage for a few seconds.
That's what I want to see with Cthulhu comps, man. You need a carry that can just leave the fight for a little bit while Cthulhu's wreaking havoc. What were you guys' thoughts on Dawson's words there, though? The joke him and Mifflin had near the end. Did you guys catch that?
I caught that. I thought it was just a joke, but if someone feels offended by it, who am I to tell them that they shouldn't be offended?
See, now
that's mostly how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think the joke is fine. The joke itself was fine. I think who it was directed at might have been too premature. I think it's a joke to be made. I just don't think they made it at the right time to the right team.
No.
I know.
I mean, I think it's. I don't know. Because I was on both sides. Like I said, the clip of me reacting to it, because I was floored by it.
Yeah.
Like, kind of made the rounds, and I thought it was funny initially, and then after seeing Wowie's tweet, I was like, yeah, I kind of understand how that's fucked up. Like we all have jobs here, right? Like, if somebody came into our workplace and said you shouldn't be employed, that would probably make you feel pretty bad.
Yeah.
Right. No matter what. It doesn't matter what you do. If one of my customers called up my boss and said, hey, you should get rid of Matt, right? Like, because he's just not cutting it. Like that would be, you can point to a lot of things. It just still does not feel good to have that happen, right?
Sure.
Publicly and in front of thousands of people. So like I get that.
Yeah.
I also get that you have to create not drama, but you gotta instigate, you gotta call things out. I mean, you look at like
you have to entertain.
You look
right?
at any sportscaster.
Right.
You
It's
look
also
at any sportscaster of any sport, and it's this guy's overpaid. Like look at Skip Bayless, and like Skip Bayless is a great example. Steven Smith, right? Like I don't even watch him that much, but you see clips of them coming out and being like, LeBron is a joke, and everybody's like, what? Like,
sure.
It's shit like that, and it creates like discussion, but like at the same time, nobody says the Cleveland Browns are shit because everybody knows the Cleveland Browns are shit.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like everybody knows they're dog. They're gonna be dog forever, right? And it just doesn't need to be said.
The Cleveland Browns fans, they have their fingers crossed, right?
You don't think in sports, at least, it might aid to like a competitive environment in a way? Because there's that feeling of it's your job. You don't want anyone saying that, but it's also like it's a meritocracy. You're here, you deserve to be here, and you get what you get.
Sure, I think there's something to be said for that, but I know for a fact in professional sports it's not like that at all, right? Or maybe not entirely, because like I'm friends with Schultz, who's on the Cowboys. I asked him, I was like, do you get the comments about the Cowboys sucking like bother you at all? He's like, no, man, this is like we're going to work. This is our job, right? There's no like, oh man, like the Cowboys, the Eagles, I got a big rivalry. It's like no, the fans have the rivalry. This is like 40 players that are at work doing their job, right? Like they don't, maybe it's different for the SPL, but like, I don't think anybody's like lacing up their sneakers in the morning going, we're taking on Ghost today. Let's do this, man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think any of that's happening. It's like, we're doing our job and we want to win and make money and continue to do what we love instead of going home and working some shit job that we don't want to do.
Oh, man. I see. I want the other one. We're taking on Ghost today. Let's go. All right, here I go.
I think you get hyped up afterwards.
Clocking in, clocking out.
Right? I mean, it's nice. And I don't want to speak for Obey and say that that's how they approach the game or that anybody approaches the game that way. But like, I think it's an overstated thing for the sake of entertainment that, there's some like, I don't know. I apologize to your editor because I like forget what I'm talking about halfway through talking about it. But like that there's some like greater holy meaning behind like these teams playing each other than people competing at a job.
Right.
I will say that the Smite scene is smaller than like a sports scene or NFL or whatever exactly. So I think a lot of NFL players or MLB or whatever, they don't pay attention to social media as much. Yeah, and maybe since the Smite scene is smaller, that obviously you're going to go on Twitter after the games, and if you see that a commentator kind of was talking down on you like that, especially after the set they had where they probably felt like they should have won games.
True.
Maybe that's kind of what got to them. But yeah, I didn't view it as too much initially either, but they take it their own way.
And I was able to ask Sam about this because he's a relatively quiet person, so I wanted to see what his take on sort of what the storylines are and things like that, because that is really the fans' sort of perspective into the world of the SPL comes through the casters and through the storylines that they see in the SPL and things like that. And his take was that of course they hear him, but most of the time players are doing their own thing. They're figuring out with their team how to win the game, and that's really all that they care about for the most part.
Yeah, I want it to be a bit more cutthroat.
Ghosts are usually on top of the tables. I don't know, but
sure.
But yeah, I see what he means.
Yeah.
I don't know that I will ever. I don't want to say trust, but empathize with the opinion of somebody who hasn't been in a bottom team situation.
I think Sam has been in a couple bottom team situations, right? I mean, when he first
Sam.
started out,
Oh man, yeah, Sam was
like trifecta.
He's been around for a very long time, and in ranked he was Oh,
Well, and
God.
also,
I've played with Sam.
Well-
I used to talk mad shite to him.
also
Oh,
like
my God.
early on the Eager days, where there are some pretty questionable things going on for Sam. That was a pretty bottom end team, I would say. At least like season 4, I want to say, around then, right?
The name stand
Uh,
for soccer, too. Oh, that gave
maybe
me anxiety and
no,
rank.
it wouldn't have been season 3. Maybe it was like fall season 3.
No.
All right, maybe. All right.
I don't know. Whenever
Anybody
Pern
who's
left.
recently been in the bottom team in the league,
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
or
you-
relegated during previous
Well,
formats.
And,
Are you talking about like during the new LAN format? Once the job security was introduced?
No, I mean, like anybody who's on a team that was on the cusp of being relegated, like things like that. You know what I mean? Where it's just like real obvious that you just get replaced at any point in time. And I don't know. I mean, maybe Trifecta wasn't that bad. Weren't they just like middle of the pack? I don't even remember the
Oh,
standings.
they were
No,
poo.
they lost it. They lost. They had to go through the losers bracket of the play-in to get into Worlds.
Yeah.
They lost it to an SML team. At the.
All right, you're right. I'm wrong.
So.
All right,
Like,
never mind. All right,
yeah.
maybe Sam's a good resource. Cut that part out.
Especially on Ghost, I'm pretty sure, like, aside from, no, maybe even Twig, they've all been on lackluster teams before.
Oh, what about Panda Cat? What was his worst team that he's been on?
He's been on a pretty. I guess Enemy kind of had its lows, but they were also had their highs.
Wait, was he on?
Uh,
Yeah, that's true.
and then Enemy turned into Eunited, and he was on Eunited for a while, and then
Sure.
Rival. Yeah.
I mean, PBM got, I don't know if he separated or if he got kicked from, he was with Zap for a while.
Well, and also
He was
there's
on
the,
ALG, and then
the
he got kicked.
Randozo's days too. I remember.
Yeah.
PBM.
Oh,
yeah.
Was he on Fat Chunks? He strikes me as a Fat Chunks player. Those trolls.
No,
No, because it was Aurora, right?
that was before his time, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, Mike was on a couple low-end teams to start his career, but I think once he got into ALG season 3, he kind of turned. Or he was on Envy actually, and then they rostered ALG, kicked Incon, picked up PBM.
It was like a roster
Kind of the
merge, right? Between
Yeah, and kind of the rest is history. Oh yeah, Cyclone and PBM,
yeah.
and then the rest is history.
Just from that perspective too, of like top level players, I want to play against people who have that drive to try and beat me. Not to be disrespectful, but I'd prefer a top team who wants to be the best over a team that kind of shows up to work. You know, I think a lot of them definitely see it as it's a competitive game that I love that I happen to get paid for. Not saying others also don't just go, okay, I'm clocking in, clocking out, but there's a big difference in performance, drive, and end results.
Yeah, for sure. The teams that put in the work. I mean, every team puts in work and wants to win, but you can tell that there's a lot of teams that put in a lot of after hours discussions, talks with the team, and it shows. Yeah.
Well, this is sort of segueing perfectly. So if you guys have any other questions or things you want to ask Cardiac while we have him here, I think we're basically done with the games for week 2. So, this is just an open discussion. And I can do an outro and we'll basically be done here.
Sounds good.
So if you guys got any
I feel
questions,
like anything I ask you, you're not going to answer because it could reveal something that you care about.
Hey,
When's
hold
this
on.
gonna be
security number, your mother's maiden name.
No, I think you should still ask it.
No, I
then
mean
he
like
has to come up
strats and
with,
gods and.
then he has to at least come up with some BS to, you got to make him work for it, right?
All right, who's the best guy in
I'm
the
open
jungle
to
and
it.
why is it Pele?
God.
I don't know if I agree with Pele being the best god in the jungle. I might lean towards Nem or Ebo maybe, but I honestly think Nem's pretty strong right now. Pele does have her merits. She's a very strong diver. Early on, she can just completely wreck house, and with the lifesteal or the soul eater, she's very hard to kill in a lot of situations. She's probably maybe top 5 jungler. I don't know if I'd call it number 1, but
alongside the Dolson comment, because it's not a comment that just kind of comes out of nowhere. You know, we have had to cut down the league because it wasn't nearly as competitive. What do you think, as a coach, as a player, as a person? What do you think the talent pool potential is looking like? Like, are any of these guys in danger of being replaced? Is there a prominent future? Not always is Smite League going to die, but do you think there's like some strong up and comers that we're not aware of yet?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of players in maybe even in European STL or SEC that are very strong that a lot of people don't know about. That maybe don't get the opportunity, I guess, this year because of COVID and things. But we picked up Genetics, who was kind of he was not really an unknown, but we picked up Genetics, and I think that he's a quality player and that he should be probably given another opportunity. We picked up Guy J from the lower leagues as well, who we recognized as someone who was outperforming where he was at and probably deserved to move up. I think there's a lot of quality players in the lower leagues that if people just decide to retire or decide to move on to other things, that could definitely fill their shoes.
See, that's the problem I have with the league structure. We talked about this last week. Is that it takes somebody retiring or moving on for somebody else to get an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not somebody playing better than them. There is no tryout. There is no nothing. It is a boys' club of who you know. And Frost has said it. I'll say it. There are, and maybe you didn't say it in so many words, but like there are people who are underperformers that are protected because of who they are and who they know, not because they are good players.
Oh, I didn't say for that, but more so there's no one to replace them. Like, yeah, they are protected, but also there's just nothing there to take it away from them.
I have a feeling that you'll see some players start to retire in the future, in the nearer future rather than the later future. I mean, people are getting old. Let's not mince words about it, right? Like, boy, Raph is getting up there into the...
Raph will be here forever, though, okay? He's an old man playing a young man's game. It doesn't matter. He's like, I may not have the reactions.
Vera, like, these guys, your priorities in life, I think, start to change. Especially, like, them being in committed relationships, all three of them, and things like that. I imagine that there are, some other things that become important in your life as you start to get older. And it seems like there is some of that that may come down the pipe sooner rather than later. Do you think that the quality of the league can sustain once? Because these are like titans, basically, of the SPL. I would say. Once these people start to leave, I mean, we already saw a pretty big exodus in the past 2 years of people that we would consider sort of like all-time greats, like like Yamin and those sorts of people. So, and even Amelito, right?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of like fan favorites. When fan favorites leave, it takes a while to like kind of grow that reputation with a new player and kind of latch on to them.
Sure.
But I don't think the talent pool is like missing necessarily. I think it is kind of like we don't really know this guy. He doesn't stream that much. He's just kind of like maybe we've seen him on ranked leaderboards or whatever, but they don't really have that connection to them. So I think maybe that's what would go missing if some of these players do retire. But I don't think the quality of the league would drop drastically or anything like that. And I think as these players, if they move up to the leagues, you're obviously going to learn, you're going to grow, and you're going to get better. Just competing in scrims, competing in SPL against better teams.
When was the last time we had those like somewhat new dominate? PBM had quite the glow up to addressing. I remember that he was just kind of like
Ven too.
Yeah, he would walk up middle of the lane, miss a Faf Hammer, and then just jump away. And he had to address on social media saying, "No, I'm not trolling. I miss, and I really do just like jumping." And then like in a year or two, he's a world champion.
Yeah, that was the ALG thing, right? Faf was meta. It was double. It was another double.
Was it ALG? I think it was when he was with Zap. I don't recall.
I think it was ALG because I remember distinctly
Well,
a conversation with.
I don't think
A
Fafnir was
6 foot-
even out until ALG was in the league.
Was it? I can't remember the character. I just do recall he'd walk up, miss, and then just jump away. And people were pissed because the rookie is just not taking it serious.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with a certain 6'4" or 5 head about how they kicked him off the team because they couldn't hit his hammers. Fafnir was meta. Who shall remain nameless.
Yeah, Mike definitely had his fair share of memes on his Fafnir hammers. I think even in the United voice pack for the Kukulkan skin, there's a line about something about missing Fafnir hammers.
Yeah, it does have that. Yeah,
I think Mike will tell you that he is an SPL only Fafnir. Scrims, he kind of does troll it.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to what we talked about last week. I don't even think it made the cut, Pam, but like, I think this is where the league really falls down in terms of like giving new talent chances, right? The opportunity for people to showcase their talents is very minimal.
Yeah.
Right. Very, very minimal. Like, you know, it's because you get these rosters that are pre-built based on previous information. And it's easy for an org. It's too easy for an org to just be like, yeah, that looks good.
Yep.
Hire them. You know, and that's why I'm going to hang on either a draft or literally tryouts. Like, you know, per role. Like, you don't draft a team, you draft per role. And, you know, make the orgs do a little bit of homework because otherwise you're just going to take what's easy because they get paid no matter what.
Yep.
Those guys get a check, whether their team is 0-15 or whether they win the league.
Yeah.
And they get a little bit more if they win the league. Like, it's, you know.
Well, and we know that there is talent out there because, like, just look at Sanguine, right? Like, who basically.
Where is it?
Yeah, we stand Sanguine.
Right?
No, but that's what I'm saying is it took an org owner to take a chance.
Yeah.
Suffer, I will say, 3 months of being the laughing stock of the community and another organization completely defaulting financially for 5 guys who play above the minimum threshold for an SPL level to get a chance.
Well,
I mean,
that's what it took for those guys to get in the league.
They got some worlds, right?
Asinine.
That's deja vu right there, as you recall. Cyclone GG turning into rival.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. But that's what it takes to get into this. And that like, there's something wrong there. And like, there's a lot of things you could do because you incent the behavior that you want, right?
Yep.
If you made really big payouts for teams that just placed well, you know, they don't have to win worlds, but if your team does well over the course of the season, you get a fat payout. Okay, well, now we got to invest some time in you know, figuring out our roster. Because your upside or your downside is losing out on $100,000 or $50,000 or whatever the hell it is, right?
Now, I'm not familiar with contracts that players have signed, but
I've read all of them. What do you want to know?
As a semi-business person myself, like, aren't these sort of incentives supposed to be baked into these contracts, like win-based incentives in the very least? Because I imagine
it has to come from the source of income.
Okay, I see.
Right. So if I tell you, like, hey Pam, like, if you win worlds, like, you're gonna get like 80% of those winnings, and I'm gonna get 20. Right. And you're like, okay, great. Right. But it's the source of income is still static. It's the same. Like you have to achieve this to get the extra bonus. And it's like money I don't have anyway, right? And you gotta win the whole thing.
Yeah. No,
right.
I know what you mean. I didn't consider that.
But if Hi-Rez like offers it like a bonus, like an incentive, like here's your mid-season bonus. If your team is 3rd place or higher, we're gonna give you $50K.
Sure.
And if you're first, it's gonna be 80. Well, now shit. And the first phase matters to me as a team owner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I need to be really serious about who I'm offering contracts to. And now that there's an upside for that first phase, I can say, well, hey, maybe I could take a risk on some salary to get that 80K.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll pay an extra $30,000 in salary to get Cyclone, Adapting, you know, PBM and all these guys, and to give them attractive offers because I'm gonna risk $30K to try and make that 80.
Sure.
Right. Or, you know, whatever the combined total is. It's like you do
you feel like the orgs have a lack of incentive to do this, or that because I imagine the players are getting paid out from things like phase 1 playoffs and things like that. Though, like there was a pretty big incentive for the players there. But you're saying that like the orgs are not incentivized to put effort in, essentially.
So I as far as I understand it, or at least in the contracts that I've read, and I mean, it's been for a number of teams. So I don't want you to think I'm like picking on anybody individually, but the winnings based percentage splits are purely based on winnings. So your team has to win in order for you to get the money for high res, which you give 80% of to the players, then you keep 20. Right?
Sure.
At least that's the last one I read.
Okay.
Right? If there's a straight up just incentive that just goes directly to the org,
yeah.
If your team does well, that's not negotiated with the players and you're not butting heads over it,
yeah,
right? For the whole season, right? Then I think, I don't know, I think things start to open up a little bit more. I mean, especially when you think like, you know, nobody gave a shit about like the first half of the year this year. Like, at all. Like, yeah, like cool. Like we do phase 1 playoffs, but nobody was like, everybody's like, oh, well, you know, in order to get to Worlds, like we just got to play well in phase 2. And that's like the big goal. Right. And unless you incentivize along the way, like people don't plan. Right. Literally, like what every single one of these orgs do is they look at their roster, they go, yeah, they could probably do well.
Yeah.
They'll probably be top 3. We can give them a little more money. We're not going to give them a lot more money. We give them a little more money. And then that's what everybody signs on.
I think the top teams at least are like, yeah, you know what, this is a pretty good team. I think like the top 3 teams are incentivized, but after that, it's kind of just do what you can, boys.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, yes, 100%. I agree with that totally. I think there has to be something done to get these orgs more invested in the teams that they put together, because right now it is a list of 5 names that get thrown on a piece of paper and
a salary demand, I imagine, also.
Right, yeah, and a salary demand. Actually,
these are the 5 names. This is how much money we want. What you gotta do, Mr. Org? I think that's how the conversation goes. You know, obviously much more polished and some fancy words and things like that. But the gist of it is,
you'd be actually very surprised by how unpolished that process was.
Yeah.
Yeah. From my experience, I can kind of second that.
Yeah. So
what, unpolished experience, or that's how it goes?
Oh no, just like how the situation goes when trying to develop a team with an org. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the org is basically coming in blind almost. It feels like for a lot of times. I don't know.
And to me, that's just, I don't want to say arrogance, but that's like a failure of the system, right? If an org comes in blind and just is like, yeah, it's a good roster. Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Then they are not invested in Smite. They're not invested in the scene. They are collecting whatever the payout is from high res for fielding a team. And that's it. And that doesn't, I personally believe that doesn't get us the best level of competition.
I agree.
It's my feeling a little bit that there are certain players that orgs feel very comfortable with. Do you feel that that's the case as well, Cardiac? Like you may have a little more insight.
Yeah, I mean, certain orgs like know about social media presence and streaming presence, and I think that what makes them a little more comfortable to offer them a contract if they know what they're like guaranteed getting.
Sure.
In a sense.
Sure.
Yeah. Because I mean, you obviously have some more recognizable names in this team than others.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the other thing that hurt the league is that all of the orgs that kind of bought into the idea of like the on-site LAN, everybody lives here in Atlanta, overpaid last year by an obscene amount, to the point where people who were getting fair offers this year were offended by it.
You think there was like a big inflation?
Well, I think a couple teams paid out thinking they were going to get an easy dub.
Ah, okay.
One in particular.
Sure.
And it didn't materialize. And then when everybody kind of pulled back the reins and said, hey, we made a big investment last year and it didn't pay out for us.
Yeah.
We're not doing this year.
I mean,
everybody was making 40, 50 grand last year is now like, what the fuck is this?
Sure.
What the is this? You know, I mean, it happened with Emilzy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I gave Emilzy a lot of shit. I didn't do it publicly, but I was like, dude, like you're making $45K with no expenses. with a food stipend, with your housing, your electric, your Comcast, your everything completely paid for. That is the equivalent in America of getting paid like $90,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
And then it drops, right? It drops by like $20K.
Yeah.
Or 15K, I think is because everybody made 35 or above.
Right.
Dropped by 15K, and he was. This is offensive, is what he said.
Yeah.
I am offended.
Yeah.
That and everybody else is like, well, I mean, this is kind of how it is this year. Everybody got the big dollars last year, and they don't this year. It's still like making $70,000 a year because you have no expenses, right? All your equipment, all the things you need is all paid for. Everybody else is, paying for their PCs and their beds and everything else and their rent. And for him, it kind of makes sense because he's living at home anyway, right? So his whole life is on, no expense. So he goes home and he gets a job for $30,000 at home, and it's the same exact thing. But, and I'll get off my soapbox. I know I've been talking a lot, but that first year, man, there were people that were like, "Wait, it was 50 and now it's 35 or 38 or 40." Like, what is this? Like, I'm a better player now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, you would think that every year there is continual improvement, self-improvement. Yes, hopefully.
Well, and that's what should drive more competition within the league is that I say, I'm a Mealsy, I'm worth $40,000. If you want me to play for your team, it's going to be $40K.
Yeah.
And then somebody goes, okay, we'll take you, but that means we're not going to get Cyclone because he's also too expensive. So we're going to pick out somebody from the SML who's a rising star. Right. I talked about this last time when we were talking with Larmy. Is when you start having good players making demands for their talent, right? Individually, you get a rise of other people because they just can't afford all the other good players, right? Like you get more opportunities for people who are willing to play for less versus I go in and I say, this is our roster. We're all going to make $35,000 and that's it. And then the org is like, yes or no.
It seems like some of the roster control that the players want sort of backfires in terms of the salary.
It ruins all negotiating power that they have.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All negotiating power that they have because you want to play so bad.
No, but if you want that roster control, like you as the players are essentially like the general managers of the roster at that point, right? So like maybe that roster control is worth something. Like if LeBron got to choose all his teammates, is that worth $10 million a year for him? Maybe it is.
Well, and that's where I think drafting in a salary cap makes sense too, right? Because if I'm adapting and I'm a 50, and let's say we have a salary cap of like 160 grand, right? I'm adapting, right? And I'm worth 50K.
Yeah.
Well, now guess what? You got to field 4 other players with 100 grand.
Yep.
Or 110 grand, right?
Yeah.
So then you say, okay, adapting, you're our first pick. You're 50K. This is what your salary is. We want to get Cyclone, but Cyclone's 35. And you got an option here is you could get Cyclone and 3 SML players for $30,000 a piece, or you can reduce your salary a little bit if you want to get Cyclone and Benji.
Yeah.
And then it is in his control, but he's not the one getting fucked.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Fucked, right? Like he's not the one getting screwed out of his talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is that like exposing your salary to your teammates is like the worst thing you can do because ultimately you're telling somebody they're not worth it. Right? No matter what it is. If I'm making 38 and Cardiac's making 35 and Pam is making 34, guess what that says? Pam is worth less than Rathan.
Yeah.
So it just causes drama. Right. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. I think go ahead. Never mind.
Hey, that's what this is for. I love when you go on your soapbox because that's extra content. Maybe I'll get it clipped and we can start some drama or something,
Frost is over here like, will this guy ever shut up? It's unbelievable.
I like this stuff, though. I enjoy this because I want the league to be more competitive. I don't. They've changed everything to sort of soften it up a little bit. I don't know. It's way too formal for me. It's way too nice. I don't need it to be like Smash where it's, we're out here in cargo shorts and screw you, dude.
Well, throwing crabs at people and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. But I do want it to be more of the best players are going to be here because they have the talent, not the players we could afford are here because they're bad at negotiating. Uh,
I was like,
yeah.
I told, because Laz lived at my house last year, for like a month, and I talked to him about the whole structure of it. I was like you guys realize it just takes all of the power away from the players when you do that, like, because you are so desperate to just have a job,
Yeah,
that you will take less money and play on a worse team if it means that you secure yourself a spot. And that's what happened with the roster apocalypse. We saw it, and I mentioned it last time with Callus, Deathwalker, and Ice,
yeah,
who literally refused to play without each other, who ended up teamless because nobody else wanted to break their current bundle that they managed to sell to these teams. And I think the fact that these teams don't invest time into understanding what they're buying, the good ones do,
yeah.
but the top 3, top 2, like Frost said, outside of that, they're like, yeah, you know what? This seems like a solid roster. These guys have performed well in the past. They're well known in the community. They got good social presence. Signed.
Sure.
So that's my big gripe. I think the smaller orgs do a good job of trying, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to the same thing. Every negotiation that I saw was, all of you need to be willing to play for this.
Yeah.
All of you need to bring your salary down by this. It wasn't, I'm using random names here. It wasn't, hey, Venenu, you're playing for 40. I need you to come down to 38, which means that Laz, you got to move down to 30, right? Or, an individual negotiation like that based on talent, like, because then you can advocate for yourself. You could say, I'm worth the 40 and here's why, right? I'm a streamer. I'm a personality. Like, I put out content, right? Like, I'm charismatic. Here are other examples of things that I've done, right? Because they have to look at the whole package, they're pricing it on the whole package.
Yep.
And that's the problem.
Sure.
Right? We do it. So I work in sales. I work in software sales, right? Anytime we do a bundle, every product in the bundle is priced exactly the same, regardless of what the value to the customer is, right?
Sure.
Anytime we do a la carte, where they just throw everything onto an order form, and we can adjust the price of it based on how much value we see there.
Sure.
Right? So if I know somebody really needs this one security product because it's essential to their business and their boss is up their ass for it, we charge more for that.
Yeah.
Or we don't have to, or maybe not charge more for that is the wrong word. We don't have to discount it as heavily. Right? Because we have the negotiation power. But when you put everything into a bundle like that, you lose all of it. So I'm putting Frost to sleep over here. I can hear him snoring.
Well, I'm attentive. What do you want from me?
No, every time I talk business, I feel like I bore the fuck out of people.
Good listener.
No, I think this is.
I
these
like
are the
this conversation as well.
Yeah, I think it needs to be more
Really?
more businessy.
I think a lot of
esport.
times these conversations, especially in the smaller esports, are taken for granted. Where people are just excited that there's a pro league and there's content to watch. So let's not even worry about this stuff. So I'm glad that we're having it. That's it for the SPL Rundown this week. Be sure to follow us on Twitch and Twitter, and follow our YouTube for extended cuts of player interviews and my talking with the analysts. See us next week at the same time and same place here on Twitch.